Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in AP English, and we turn now in our study of Dante's Inferno to Canto number 3. I'll give you the title, Welcome to Hell, the Uncommitted, and Ashram. Now why we call it that, obviously we'll get into here in a moment. I said at the conclusion of our close study of the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid, posted again on learnstrong.net in that AP folder, my hope is that you have been with us for certainly that study all the way from the Iliad up through our study of Augustine's Confessions. But do you guys remember that I said at the conclusion of my lectures after the Aeneid that one of the things that makes those epics so powerful, beyond the fact that they're amazing poetry, beyond the fact that they will speak to us as propaedeutics, as instructional, is the somewhat kind of like disturbing elements, right? They raise questions that are really disturbing. Great works of literature, I'm going to argue, do that for us, and I'm going to argue that's a good thing, not a bad thing. The fact that we have to grapple and struggle with ideas, I'm going to argue and have argued already for you in earlier lectures, that's a really positive thing. And while Dante's Inferno and the first three cantos, the first two cantos for sure, have been for us, there have been a few questions raised. We're now going to get to some serious questions. Theological questions, philosophic questions, existential questions, right away. And of course Dante knew exactly what he was doing, which is why he was a little bit intrepid in Canto 2, invoking the Muse, that he does the best job he can to uphold the positions that he wishes to uphold. Now, really quickly, let's just summarize what we've gone through so far. We've given an intro lecture, again all of this posted at learnstrong.net in the AP folder for us. Canto 1, you'll remember, was that we have Dante lost in a dark wood with those three animals showing up and Virgil showing up. In Canto 2, you'll remember after the invocation of the Muse, we are told why it is the case that Virgil is there, because Beatrice told him that he should. Now in Canto 3, we will get to actually the journey into hell, although not quite into hell. Dante's construction of hell, again, this is a construction you won't read in the New Testament in the Bible, okay? This is really a construction that comes derived from Dante's study of Augustine, of Aquinas, and then of his, and quite frankly, a lot of it is just of his own brilliant creation. But basically, you've got an area before hell, then hell itself, okay? And that's kind of where we'll start to introduce ourselves here in Canto 3. Now again, the hope is that you've read this material on your own. I mean, I know I'm reading it with you, and of course in our study of Inferno, we'll read every word together out loud, but I really challenge you to read this stuff on your own. You come to your own annotative conclusions, and then let me help. Again, our learning theory, we always are reminding ourselves of what our learning theory is. That goal is to connect new information to old information in meaningful ways. And in our reading, we do that at level 1 by summary. In level 2, answering the question, what does the text mean? 2A, themes, messages. 2B, again, we're concentrating on symbolism, irony, and we're asking about Dante as poet, as politician, and as philosopher. And we'll look closely, obviously, in this book, in this canto, very closely to this. Finally, at level 3, we ask, how can I relate to this information in some meaningful way? At 3A, relating to the other texts we've already studied, beginning with the Iliad and culminating with our study of Augustine's Confessions. And then finally, how can I relate to this information personally? Again, we're going to see some really demanding, difficult questions in each one of these cantos, which is why we're going to spend time with each canto. All right, let's do a real quick, brief summary of Canto 3 before we get into the reading. We're going to see the inscription of hell, the gates of hell, abandon hope all ye who enter here. By the way, notice we're not told how Dante and Virgil get to the outside of hell. We just, there they are, right? Then we're going to meet the uncommitted, and we're going to see our first punishments. Then we're going to go down to Ashra, and we're going to see the ferryman, Charon, the ferryman on the boat. We saw him, of course, when we were in Virgil's Aeneid, Book 6, right? The Acheron, of course, is one of 4 rivers, the famous 4 rivers of hell. Then, at the very end of the canto, we're going to see this thing that happens again in Canto 5, with the fainting thing going on. We're going to see it several times where Dante swoons, or he faints, or he sits down, or he can't go any further. And as he proceeds into hell, he will become less and less inclined to want to do this kind of being overwhelmed by the senses. And we may even have a Plato reference from an earlier conversation with Plato that we'll get to. Okay, let's go ahead now and turn to the canto itself. And right away, we will have a reminder that I want to share with you. Do you remember in our comments on Aeneid Book 6, line 150 or so, that the Sibyl will say to Aeneas, the descent to the underworld is easy. I mean, all you got to do is die to go to the underworld. But to climb back, there is where the struggle, there is where the labor lies. Well, yeah, we're going to see that notion played out vividly in Dante. We begin at the outside of hell, and there's the door, there's the gate of hell. Now, this will remind us in some ways of when, you'll remember this, Aeneas shows up at Carthage, do you remember this? And he was on his way to meet Dido for the first time, and he sees this amazing work of art that describes the fall of Troy, and you'll remember that Aeneas sees it, and he kind of starts crying, he kind of starts weeping, because he's like, wow, that just brings back all kind of memories. This notion of having some kind of portal that you go through, or some kind of gate, this is a very old idea. And here for Dante, he imagines that the gates of hell have an inscription. You'll notice that in our copy of the Penske translation, in fact, it's all in capital letters to kind of give it a sense that, in fact, there's something really special about these words. The words read, "Through me you enter into the city of woes." It's as if the voice of the gate, right? "Through me you enter into the city of woes. Through me you enter into eternal pain. Through me you enter the population of loss. Justice moved my high maker in power divine, wisdom supreme, love primal. No things were before me not eternal. Eternal I remain." And then, of course, the most famous lines from the inscription, "Abandon all hope, you who enter here." And then Dante the Pilgrim says, these words I saw inscribed in some dark color over a portal. And then obviously he's going to ask what's going on. Well, let's look at these. I mean, there's so much here. I'm going to fight the temptation to get too deep here into this conversation already. But I think it's important that we at least take a look at a few of the words of the inscription. Notice, hell is going to be a city of woe. This will lead T.S. Eliot to think about London in very similar ways. I had not thought death had undone so many will be actually the lines not only from here in Canto 3, but also the lines from Wasteland. We'll get to those later in our study. Notice he says here, eternal pain. Now this will resurrect one of the early questions. Is it fair? Is it right? Can we use the language that will be used in the inscription? Is it just to punish someone for eternity? And of course the other question, what is eternity? Like, what does that even mean when I draw a number line on my whiteboard that's a segment, a line segment, and I put a beginning and an end, but then I put those two arrows at either end, and then I ask you, what does that mean? You say, well, that means that it goes on forever, infinity, eternal. What does that even mean? The capacity to even imagine what that notion means, eternity, obviously the notion of time, this is problematic for us as well. But notice here, eternal pain. Through me, the last one of the three, you enter the population of loss. Now it's an interesting question to ask, what is it that's been lost? I mean, it's fascinating that you still have some sense in the underworld for Dante of your physical body. So, for example, here in a little bit, the uncommitted are going to get jacked by getting stung by bees and stuff like that to their physical body. So much so that blood is going to drip down onto the ground where the maggot worms will eat their blood. Yuck. It's a bad, yucky picture. We're going to see a lot of these. But nonetheless, think about this. When you die, your body goes into the ground in a form of a coffin or whatever normally, and then it deteriorates into the dirt. And yet in Dante, you still somehow possess your body. So the obvious question is, what is it that got lost? And then, of course, with the word lost, we're taken back to the opening lines of the Divine Comedy. I found myself lost in a dark wood of error. This notion of loss. In other words, something is missing in this place. What is that? Well, we'll keep reading. Notice the next one. Justice moved my high maker in power divine. In other words, I was constructed by justice. Well, we got to see, of course, that the word justice is the central question of Plato's Republic. You'll remember, culminating at the end of Republic 1 with the whole discussion of the Thermosican question of might makes right and all of that. Justice. What does it mean, justice? Well, of course, in our Plato study, we know that justice has different meanings depending upon whether we're talking about the polis, that is to say the republic, or the individual. Notice here, we may think about justice in the terms of fairness. It's only the right thing. Notice, justice moved my high maker, God, in power divine. Now, there has always been this notion of the Trinitarian reading of Dante. In fact, some scholars just go all the way through the poem, especially the Inferno, and notice all of the Trinities. Here, notice you're going to have the Trinities of power, wisdom, and love, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, right? Notice power divine, justice, and power. Remember, and just do this in your notes really quickly. See if you can do it from memory. What are the four cardinal virtues of Plato's Republic? Remember them? Wisdom, courage, good. What was the third one? Temperance, that's right, self-control. We're going to get to incontinence here a little bit later when we meet that. And then finally, of course, justice itself, right? What are the three cardinal Christian virtues of St. Paul? 1 Corinthians 13, faith, hope, and love. Let's write all of those down, and let's see if any of them get referenced, and if so, in what ways. Notice, justice, probably there it is for us already, easy. Power, you might see power as somehow a combination of courage, temperance, might as well be something related to wisdom, right? Power. Wisdom, well, there it is. Wisdom supreme, love, primal. Now that's an interesting one because, of course, faith, hope, and love, the greatest of these is love. No things were before me, not eternal. In other words, hell was constructed before all other things. Eternal I remain and will always remain. Now this is obviously an interesting question. To what degree is it necessary for the Creator to create hell? Now, one simple answer for Catholic Christians of Dante's time is, well, you have this whole thing about the fallen angel story. Now, while that's not really explicated so cleanly in the Bible, especially the New Testament, we do have some of this further explained for us in Milton's Paradise Lost, and we'll get to that epic poem later. But the idea is that because of the fallen angels, Lucifer and the fallen angels, you had to have a place for all those guys, and that was hell, and therefore this place was constructed. And then humans were constructed, and the humans that choose to disobey God will go to hell. It's kind of a way to think about it. Obviously, we got major questions here. We'll have to just raise them and then move on. To what degree is it possible that one can love and still punish? And yet, we're familiar with parents who say, I am punishing you because I love you, right? Some of you rolling your eyes. And then, of course, abandon all hope. We're back to faith, hope, and love. Abandon all hope, you who enter here. In other words, this is a place of loss because this is a place of no hope. This is a place of loss because this is a place of no love. This is a place of loss because this is a place of no faith. Do you get me? In other words, this is a beautiful construction for Dante to say, well, who is to blame for being in this place? Notice we're back to the blame game question again that we've so often talked about in our study, especially the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid. Remember, the beginning of the Odyssey, the blame game question is so evident that you'll remember that Zeus will in fact say, it is not my fault that humans encounter so much pain. Right? Okay. Well, this will lead, of course, Dante the pilgrim to ask Master. He said, make clear their meaning, which is obviously the whole point of calling this text a propaedeutic, instructional. Can you please help me out here? Which I find too hard to gather. In other words, I can't figure out what I'm supposed to understand about these words. And again, put it in your notes. This is Dante's really subtle way of reminding us. This is a text about learning how to read. Remember, we said about Augustine's Confessions that that is a text about learning how to read. Here we have a text about learning. Help me to know how I'm supposed to read this stuff. If you will, some of you will come to this very lectures asking, okay, I read this stuff, but I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to make of it. And here we are. He says, can you help me? Can you help me out how to find the meaning, right? He says, I find too hard to gather. Then, we're told he, that is to say Virgil, as one who understands, he says this, all fear must be left here, and cowardice die. In other words, We can't go any further if you're going to continue to have fear and cowardice. What's the irony? He faints at the end of the canto. Together, he says, we've arrived here, where I have told you. Here you will behold, that is to say, see, the wretched souls who've lost the good of intellect. Now, this is the key line many have argued in reading all of Inferno. Why are you Inferno? Not because you sin. Everyone sins in Dante's Catholic theology, but rather because no repentance, no begging for forgiveness. These individuals have lost the ability to the good of intellect, the ability to think, to reason. Then, we're told, with good cheer, in his expression. We think about the smiling of Achilles, we think about the smiling of Aeneas, and now here we are with the smiling of Virgil. With good cheer in his expression to encourage me, he placed his hand on mine. And we think about that great passage 46 of Song of Myself. I know I have the best of time and space. It was never measured and never will be measured. I tramp a perpetual journey all. Remember what he says about the great teacher who either rest the chuff of your hand on my waist, and I will do so with you, and all of that. In other words, he kind of holds on to him, or he puts his hand on him to kind of give him some comfort. So, trusting to my guide, I followed him among things undisclosed. This will be for Milton later, things unattempted yet in prose and rhyme in the opening lines of Paradise Lost. In other words, nobody's ever disclosed what I'm about to disclose. Dante, the poet, is saying, nobody's ever disclosed what I'm about to show you. Right? And of course, that we haven't said, but it's important that the structure of this poem is that we are kind of like voyeurs. We're following along, almost like we're behind Dante the Pilgrim and Virgil. And we're kind of looking over their shoulder to see what it is that they see, and to hear what it is that they say. And here we go, right? Okay, what is it that we're going to see? Well, for the very beginning, line 1920, the sighs, groans, laments. Notice we start with sounds of the five senses, and they'll all be solicited. All of them will be solicited in our discussion of Inferno. We begin with what you can hear. The sighs, the groans, the laments. At first were so loud, resounding through starless night, starless air. We're obviously in the underworld, so there's no stars. I began to weep. So right away we've got again the hero of an epic poem crying. Strange languages, horrible screams, words imbued with rage or despair, cries as of troubled sleep or a tortured shrillness. They rose in a coil. Notice the word coil plays almost like serpentine. Coil of tumult, along with noises like the slap of beating hands, all fused in a ceaseless flail that churns and frenzies that dark and timeless air. And then we get another simile, like sand in a whirlwind. And I, my head in a swirl, he'll faint by the end of Canto 3, of error, my head in a swirl of error, cried, Master, what is this I hear? What people are these? We're going to see this regularly through the Inferno, where he'll ask, who are these people, right? Like Glaucon, brave in all things, Dante the Pilgrim is a great student, and so he'll ask his teacher, what's going on here? What people are these whom pain has overcome? And then this is the sorrowful state of souls unsure, whose lives earn neither honor nor bad fame, and they're mingled with angels of that base sort, who, neither rebellious to God nor faithful to Him, chose neither side, but kept themselves apart. Now heaven expels them, not to mar its splendor, and hell rejects them, lest the wicked of heart take glory over them. In other words, put it in your notes this way. Before we get to hell proper, there are billions and tens of billions of souls that are going to be the souls of the, what here Penske will call the unsure, often translated as the uncommitted. In other words, they never could make up their mind. Now, this is going to sting a little close to home already at 3b, because, yeah, there are a whole lot of people, souls, who are punished in Dante's hell, not actually in hell. They're actually not even allowed to get to hell. They can't get to heaven, they can't get to hell, they're not allowed to go to purgatory. And what was wrong with these people? Never made up their mind. They chose not to choose. And in the process, they made their choice. So heaven won't choose them, hell won't choose them, and forever there they are, rejected. These are T.S. Eliot's hollow men. Later, of course, when we meet that great poem, we are the hollow men, we are the stuffed men, leaning together, headpiece filled with straw. Alas, our dry voices when we whisper together are quiet and meaningless as wind and dry grass, a rat's feet over broken glass in our dry cellar. This is as well going to be Yeats's classic line from Second Coming, the best lack all conviction. The worst are full of passionate intensity. In other words, people who never could commit. They were undecided about the important things in life. And for that, they are rejected both by heaven and by hell. Then, of course, this leads Dante to say, Master, what agony is it that makes them keen their grief with so much force? In other words, okay, I get it. They're here because they couldn't make up their mind where they wanted to go, heaven or hell. But I mean, what's up with the agony? What's with the sound? And then again, the response, I will make brief answer. They have no hope of death, but a blind life. Our comments about sight and perspicacity in Plato's Republic now will come full circle, right? The whole thing about living a blind life, so abject. They envy any other fate. To all memory of them, the world is death. They have become completely forgotten. They've done nothing to be remembered for, either good or bad. Mercy and justice disdain them. Let us not speak of them. Look and pass on. In other words, I don't even want to talk about these people. There's nothing to talk about in regards to these people. Now, this will be our first example from our study of Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine. Contrapassio is the technical term for this. That is to say, the punishment fits the crime. In other words, you do in life what you do, we'll call it a sin, and then in the afterlife you're punished in a certain way. Let's pay attention now to our first example of this notion of retribution. He says, I looked again, Dante the Pilgrim says, I looked again. A whirling banner sped at such a rate, so you got this white flag. There's nothing, notice, there's no marks on the flag. It's just a white flag. In other words, there was always, these people never could commit to any cause. They had no opinions of their own, if you will. They never could make up their mind. A whirling banner sped at such rate it seemed it might never stop. Behind it, a train of